Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some truly fascinating concepts from a text titled Strong Mind. We're going to be focusing specifically on a chapter that impartially explores something literally every single one of us has to deal with, the absolute inevitability of life's crises. Now, instead of looking at our setbacks as unnatural disasters or just, terrible luck, the source material actually frames these challenges as a highly predictable, almost mathematical curriculum of human development. So if you've ever felt like life is just throwing a constant series of hurdles at you, I think you're really going to appreciate the structured perspective we're breaking down today. Here's a quick look at the chronological journey we'll take through this framework. We'll kick things off with the 10-year crisis cycle, then look at the decades of changing trials, move right into the post-40 pivot, explore finding moderate happiness, and finally, cultivating a strong mind. Let's jump in. Section 1. The 10-year crisis cycle, rethinking a famous proverb. Get ready to challenge what you think you know about a very well-known saying.
Okay, we all know the feeling, right? You finally get things settled, you find your rhythm, and then bam! Seemingly out of nowhere, a major disruption hits. The text asks a very direct question about this. Why does unexpected suffering seem to operate on a cyclical schedule? Why do these massive hurdles always seem to appear exactly when we think we've got it all figured out?
Well, the author objectively reframes a classic proverb to answer this. We've all heard that motivational phrase, fall 7 times, get up 8. Usually, it's just meant to inspire some grit. But the text treats this as a literal, statistical reality. Think about it. If you live an average lifespan of 70 to 80 years, the math suggests you're going to face a major, life-altering crisis roughly once every decade. 7 decades means 7 massive falls. It's not bad luck, it's literally just the standard curriculum of living. Section 2. Decades of changing trials. The chronological journey. Let's look at how these predictable crises actually change shape as we get older. So, according to the text, the nature of our 10-year crises evolves alongside us. Around age 10, the trial usually shows up as family or school turbulence. By 20, we're facing the intense pressures of stepping into adulthood. At 30, the crises revolve around true independence and self-reliance. And skipping ahead to age 50, the text uses this beautiful metaphor, describing an autumn wind blowing through our lives, which is basically a realization of aging and shifting life phases. If we zoom in on those earlier years for a second, the text explicitly points out that age 10 might bring disruptions like parents losing jobs, family disputes, or heavy academic pressures. Then by age 20, the trials shift completely toward the heavy burden of entering society, facing employment realities, and navigating early adult relationships. The text emphasizes that these aren't random events. They are the exact trials required to forge an adult. Section 3. The post-40 pivot, the turning point. This brings us to what the source identifies as the most critical juncture in our entire lives. That crucial point is age 40. The text actually describes this age as reaching the absolute peak of life's mountain. So why is this specific crisis so uniquely difficult? Because, as the author notes, it's the exact moment when multiple major life factors converge all at once. Your career pressures peak as you move into management, your physical health begins to show undeniable signs of wear and tear, and complex family dynamics, like raising teenagers or caring for aging parents, hit you simultaneously. The source draws a really stark contrast here. Before our 40s, we're fueled by youthful ambition, right? We want absolute success, top marks, the ideal life across the board. But post-40s? The text suggests a profound internal recalibration is absolutely necessary. If you attempt to maintain that demand for absolute success in all areas, it's only going to lead to suffering. Instead, the post-40 pivot demands compromise and the pursuit of intermediate fulfillment. Section 4. Finding moderate happiness. Adjusting expectations. Here is the primary solution the text offers for navigating this complicated post-40 landscape. The author uses a fantastic metaphor to explain this. Imagine a monkey that reaches into a jar to grab a handful of rice, but then absolutely refuses to let go of any grains. Because its fist is now too big to fit back through the opening, it's trapped. The text argues that after 40, we have to learn to accept moderate happiness. If you try to hold on to absolute career dominance, perfect family peace, and total personal freedom all at the exact same time, you get stuck. You have to open your hands slightly, let a few grains go, and just be satisfied with an intermediate, balanced level of happiness. Which brings us to a highly counterintuitive yet deeply practical takeaway from the text. Be grateful when bad things are not happening to you. The author suggests completely reframing our baseline for happiness. Instead of constantly demanding that amazing, positive events happen to us, we should recognize that the sheer absence of disaster is actually a profound blessing. If your kids aren't acting out today or your health isn't actively failing right now, that neutral state is a form of quiet success. It's something to be incredibly thankful for. Section 5. Cultivating a strong mind, the anatomy of resilience. Let's summarize the text's advice on building the mental fortitude you need to survive these cyclical 10-year falls. The text outlines 4 key components to developing this strong mind. First, you absolutely must know your station and focus on your actual strengths, rather than fighting unwinnable battles. Second, you have to categorically stop blaming your misfortunes on other people or outside circumstances. Third, you must actively develop what the author calls a restoration force. And finally, fourth, you must use these inevitable falls to transform raw suffering into deep, enduring character. To explain this idea of a restoration force, the text uses the vivid metaphor of a buoy. Think of a buoy floating out in the ocean. The waves of life, those 10-year crises we talked about, will absolutely push it deep underwater. That is 100% guaranteed. But the defining characteristic of a buoy is its inherent restoration force. It doesn't fight the water, it just naturally, inevitably pops right back up to the surface. A strong mind isn't built to avoid being pushed down, it's built to master the art of floating back up. Furthermore, the author makes a really powerful assertion here. Enduring these crises isn't just a matter of selfish survival. It's actually the exact required mechanism for developing deep empathy. The text argues that unless you have personally experienced the sorrow of falling down, you literally cannot generate genuine kindness or compassion for the suffering of others. Your 10-year crisis is the forge that creates your capacity to love and understand your fellow human beings. Which leaves us with this final vital thought to consider. We've established the mathematical reality of the proverb. You will face a next 10-year crisis. You will fall. The only question that remains, according to the principles of a strong mind, is this. When that inevitable moment comes and you begin the hard work of floating back to the surface, what kind of light will you continually strive to shine on the world as you get back up? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.